Greetings, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. So upon filming today, it's April 8th, 2022. So for those Dolomites that happen to see this video, happy first day of the writing of the book of the law. I've heard some say Happy New Year to everybody. Today is an interesting video, and first of all, the title says Declassified CIA document on Astral Travel, and that's not clickbait. That's what I'm talking about. So just hang tight, and I'll get to that in a moment. It's been a few weeks since I've shot a video. I've been busy. I actually just finished my first handmade painted stele revealing that was commissioned by a friend of mine, and I'm going to be working on another one of those soon, so you can take a look at the pictures that are dropping now. And yeah, let me know what you guys think of those. They are available. They'll be selling through my fiance's website, baleskinworks.net or .org. There's a link in the description. So yeah, I've been busy with that, visiting friends. I'm working on some Enochian stuff, scrying the aethers, and so I've just been all around busy. And yeah, I've been putting off this video for a few weeks now, but figured it's either now or never. It's time to stop putting it off and just get to it. So I happened upon this topic a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so. I was watching like a top 5 ghost videos on YouTube, or like weird video type stuff like that, compilation, and they talked about this document right here that I'm going to be reviewing. I have notes on it and I'll be talking about it. And the document was released in 2003. Looks like September 10th, 2003. P.S. There is a description to download this paper. There's a link to download this paper in the description below. Also, it was missing page 25. However, the organization that they're using, that they're doing research on through the CIA, they had the 25th page. So there's a link to the 30 some odd pages here, and then there's a link to download also the 25th page if you're interested in actually reading this. Now, this is from a case study by the CIA in 1983, June 9th, 1983, analysis and assessment of gateway process. So I'm going to talk about all of that and more in regards to astral traveling, why the government used it, what this document says, and the organization that they were using this type of astral traveling from was the Monroe Institute. So the Monroe Institute, I'll also give a brief overview in a moment. There is a link to both their YouTube channel, their main website, and some practices that are free in the description below. So check all of those out, download any of the papers that you want to see yourself. Check out the website. You could do your own research on this particular topic, whether it's astral traveling, why the CIA used astral traveling, why they chose this particular type for this document, what made them release it, and then you can check out the Monroe Institute also. So there's links to all of that in the description below. So I'm going to get started with the video in just a moment. In the meantime, you could start to check out all of that stuff. Okay, so if you did download the papers from the description, the first 2 pages are an introduction, and it's a letter from a commander named Wayne McDonald, and it is to a commander of the U.S. Army Operational Group. And it gives an assessment of what the gateway experience is and why he recommends that the CIA could use this method of astral traveling. So basically, let me start off with what is the Monroe Institute before I get to all of the CIA connections with it and their case studies. So the Monroe Institute was founded in 1974 in Indiana. Now, what they do there is explore human consciousness, specifically left brain, right brain synchronization, and they do that through guided meditations and a specific, it's very similar to EMDR, which is a current treatment for PTSD. What it does is, you could do this different ways for the EMDR. that we're going to leave that aside. It's the similar process. You could use physical tapping, activating both sides of the body, or you could use sounds, a beep and then a beep, 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 right? So what it does is it activates both sides of the brain by alternating sound frequencies. What the Monroe Institute does is use a very specific type of frequency that mimics the pulsations and vibrations of both the heart and the nerves firing electricity through your neurons in the brain. So there's a certain frequency, it's a very subtle frequency that has a sound as your heart's beating and as your neurons are firing electricity and communicating with one another in the brain. So they mask these sounds from left to right on each ear. Sometimes it could be through nature sounds, sometimes it could be through the ocean or other similar worldly sounds that are calming in some type of way. And they mimic the frequency of the heart and the neurons' vibrations masked in these sounds of nature. And they go from left to right, and they're very subtle, and unless you're really, really, really paying attention, they're hard to even notice that it's happening. And then in addition, for a lot of their videos, they will do some type of guided meditation. And I'll talk more about the purposes of their courses later on, but that's just the general premise. It's to give the left brain something to, the logical brain, the left brain, something to focus on and work with, to distract it. Then you link the brains, it allows the right brain, the creativity, to override and become foremost while connected to the left brain. And what that does is it allows your unconscious mind to start to bring things out into the conscious mind. So you're distracting the left brain, activating the right brain, syncing the two of them, bringing the unconscious ideas or expressions of thought from the unconscious to the conscious. That's the general premise of what they do, and they do that with their sounds. And later in this document there is a whole list of different courses and why they use those type of courses, just as like a final thought, you know. So what this document does now with the CIA is it recommends that the CIA could use astral traveling for navigating space-time, right? The universe is all space-time according to Einstein's theory of relativity. And I'll get more into some of the specifics about that because I found it really cool and nerdy. And it's fascinating and it makes sense. So they want to navigate space-time, and being an intelligence agency for the US government, that sounds like a really powerful way to know what enemies and allies are doing. You might have an ally in another government that you find out by, you know, infiltrating them with astral traveling that, hey, they're not really your ally at all. In fact, they might have people that were plotting against you. So that could be a very useful thing for a government to be able to harness, right? And I've seen occultists do similar things, you know. And they talk in these documents a little bit about different methods of, you know, spiritual practices that border on this and that are similar, including hypnosis, transcendental meditation, biofeedback, and then the gateway and what they called Hemi-Sync or hemisphere synchronization through the Monroe Institute. So there are all different types of ways. There are also other methods, including light or sound, that you could do this with, but the Monroe Institute strictly uses sound. Also, let me say in the description, there are, on the Monroe Institute's channel, free videos that you could try out if you want to do some of these yourself. I have experimented with them, and I've had really good results, and I'll post, or maybe not post in the video, but I'll talk about some of my experiences with their free courses, and I could say for sure that it works. And what's interesting now here, let's come back to the CIA. So in this document, the person who actually took this as a case study and experimented through the Monroe Institute's method of astral traveling did 100% confirm that, hey, this works. Astral traveling is real. Navigating space-time is real. and this is something that the US government can use to an approximately 80% efficiency. Every experience has been within 80% confirmed. So they give a study in here where they used the method of astral traveling. They were on the West Coast, and there was a laboratory, a science computer laboratory on the East Coast. And on a computer screen on the East Coast in that lab, they had a series of 10 numbers on the computer screen. A person on the West Coast used the Hemi-Sync astral traveling method to go into the laboratory here, look at the computer screen, and then write down the numbers. And they did this multiple times. I forget exactly how many it was. Let's say it was 10, 25, 30, 50 times. 80% of those were confirmed, or within 80% they would be able to get 8 to 10 of the numbers. And so they confirmed that there are other dimensional factors in our own space-time. And there's also the possibility of navigating the multiverse through astral traveling, which so if you accidentally find yourself in a very similar multiverse that's similar to our universe and has almost the same numbers, you might see two different. But you are, from what all their studies that they did using this, they got within an 80% accuracy. So that's pretty remarkable to hear that the government actually confirms, yes, we know about astral traveling, occult practices work, you can navigate space-time. Yeah, you know, there are other dimensions present here in our universe. So all of that is real. So I think that this was like a really cool case study and series of papers that got released. Now, how does this work? So I talked about they use these sounds and they use these guided meditations, right? That's not all that the Monroe Institute is for, is astral traveling. Like I said, they were more interested in exploring human consciousness and helping people evolve and have a better state of all-around mental health and improve your quality of life, both on a physical, mental, and spiritual level. So while astral traveling and OBEs do happen, there's only one out of their many courses that actually focus on astral traveling. How this works. It's explained in here, which I found very similar to the Tree of Life, that energy in the universe, it goes through a torus, T-O-R-U-S. Now what that is you have a state down here, a state up here. This cycles energy almost in two spirals, and we are somewhere in our universe in the center of all of this, and energy is just kind of cycling in that manner through the universe. And it's very similar to a concept of the Tree of Life, where energy comes down through the Ein Sof Or, right, the three veils, into Kether, goes down. That's the light becoming matter, from Kether down to Malkuth on the Tree of Life. Once it's down here, and we've evolved into conscious beings that can navigate this proxy, the Tree of Life, we are then seeking to become spiritual and in union with the original source. And on a universal scale, there's that saying in Eliphas Levi's, one of his books, we have fixed the volatile, now we must volatilize the fixed. And it's a matter of life and death and the wheel of samsara. What's becoming incarnate is eventually going to be destroyed and become pure energy again. And then that pure energy and nothingness is going to explode and create a whole thing. So it's constantly going through the cycle of being nothingness up here, coming down, creating the universe, and then working its way back up into nothingness over trillions and trillions of years and aeons and multiverses. And so all of these things are essentially energy coming down and energy going back up. Now, when you're exploring time-space using this method and you do achieve some type of out-of-body experience, what's happening there? We are made up of atoms and particles, just like everything else that's physical matter, from carbon to any other element, is made up of atoms and particles. Now, there is a consciousness underlying all of that, and we'll just coin it consciousness for sake of this video to keep things moving. It could be more complex, but so all of these things are guided. They're all one essential being, this universe, right? Our minds, our brains, physical matter of the brain, are made up of these particles, and within there resides what we call ourself. Lexi. Lexi resides within here. this body and uses the mind as the driving wheel, right? And the changing of the gears, and this is what moves, makes me talk, helps me drive my body, right? But there's a consciousness underlying working that brain, right? Well, if consciousness can exist within here and the electricity in here, and everything else is made up of just particles, why is it not capable to shift that consciousness from here to another particle anywhere else? Think of quantum entanglement. Two atoms collide, go infinite directions, they are billions of light years away from each other. Once that entanglement happens, whatever you do to this atom simultaneously happens to this atom. There is a connection of consciousness here between these two atoms, no matter how far apart they are. Well, using this Hemi-Sync, or just an occult practice of astral traveling, if you get good with it, I found this to be a very easy way to astral travel and have an out-of-body experience. Once you're capable of moving your consciousness outside of the body, you can actually extend it into particles anywhere else in the universe, and bam. We could also, this does not, but we could also take into account dark matter, and possibly it's even that we're navigating our consciousness through dark matter, if we could figure out exactly its principles, right? Needless to say, there's space anywhere, and your consciousness can move to that space. All you have to do is be able to release the constraints of what holds it here. And partly what's happening there is that the left brain is really in control most of the time. So if you could remove that, allow the creative brain to take over, allow the unconscious to take over, it becomes very easy to shift your consciousness out of the body and to move it anywhere else. And like I've said, they've done case studies, some contained in here, some elsewhere, that are, and probably a lot of studies that have not been released to the public, on astral traveling, remote viewing, etc. And it works. So the fact is, it's 100% confirmed to my mind at this point that you can use certain practices to release your mind, or whatever you want to call your ego, yourself, to release the constraints of the body and mind and move your consciousness elsewhere, right? To me, it's 100% confirmed at this point. So, using the Hemi-Sync method, I've done a couple of them from what's in the video down in the description on this video. I've tried those free practices, and it does work. I've had very interesting stimulation of the unconscious mind and my body, to the point that I was easily able to slip into a place of I was no longer myself. So far as my body, my mind was active elsewhere, and from what I experienced, I actually created a place on the astral, and I went there. And it was much easier than going somewhere in the physical world and navigating that, because it was still within the constraints of something that my mind created on the astral plane, very close to me. And I was able to go there and interact with spiritual beings. So that's basically the premise of what's going on here. Now, the Monroe Institute, like I said, they focus on a lot of other things besides for out-of-body experiences. That's almost like a byproduct. They're more concerned with strictly evolving human consciousness and improving quality of life through their own methods, using certain sounds, right, to free up the mind. On pages 20 through 22 of this document, there is a list of advanced techniques that the Monroe Institute uses in their programs. It goes from problem solving, and this could vary from achieving communion with what they've coined, quote, the higher self, in other words, expanding consciousness, to interact with the universal hologram, to obtain information required to solve the problem, patterning, energy bar tool, pushing energy through a magic wand, for instance, manipulating the astral through the means of a tool, remote viewing, a living body map, which can allow healing through the body. You could go into specific places in the body and let's say you have hip pain or something, or a bad knee, you could actually go in there and stimulate energy into that area, almost like like a hands-off type Reiki worker might do, or some type of energy healing of an Asiatic school of Buddhist, or martial arts might do, where you move energy to a specific part of the body to heal it. That is something that they focus on. Travel into the past, travel into the future, and some other really cool things that really promote quality of life, supporting better sleep, better living habits, contemplation of self, all of these type of things. In this document, I had a couple of problems with a couple of things said. They proposed the idea of a universal hologram, and it poses the question, what is reality? Light hits everything, and that's why we see color, but the objects are there, we interact with them. I don't personally buy into the holographic theory that you could research that on your own, what it is. The definition of hologram is a three-dimensional image formed by the interference of light beams from a coherent light source. My thought on that: is the universe a hologram? Well, is the universe formed by light? Allegorically, yes. Literally, no. We call the divine substance the light, right? Even like a Kabbalist would say the Ein Sof Ors, the limitless light, is what creates physical matter by trickling down through the tree of life. Is that a tangible substance? No, it's not actual light. It's not sunlight. It's not artificial light. It's not light in that sense. It's a metaphor. The sun is a great metaphor for God because it's something so powerful and bright, and we consider things bright and beautiful and powerful to be good, right? Especially in Western culture. So that's become the sun is symbolic of God in many schools of thought, even pagan religions. I think that's lost on many people, that we're not actually worshiping the sun, we're worshiping the ideology of the sun as a symbol of God, right? So is the universe literally light? No, but it is an allegory for this divine substance, right? Light interferes with objects in space, merely revealing color. The light is not creating those substances. Whether that is artificial light, real light, divine light, that's a metaphor for what's happening. It's not an actuality. The universe, in my opinion, is not a hologram. So that's one thing. I would say, just from my few experiences with this, it's limited by where you are magically or spiritually. If you've been doing ritual magic or meditation and yoga for a long period of time, you're going to have probably very quick results with this, and that's good. If you have never done any type of meditation at all, and you jump into this, you might have a cool experience or a very calming effect or something, but you're not going to jump into it and start having giant life-changing revelations. Those require contemplation of self and require work. And I think one thing that actually the CIA person that wrote this document was lost to them is that, yes, this does give you quick results, but my experience with quick results is problematic. You need life experiences to grow from. You do ritual magic and things get kicked up. You have to take a look at those, and you have to figure out who you are in those situations. It requires time, life experience, reflection, introspection. Quick is, in my opinion, 100% always worse. It requires time, Now, try it for yourself, and, you're free to think different than that, but, they do say that this is going to be a very quick experience shaping thing. You're going to grow from this rapidly, but I would just say, it still is going to require time, and that could lead to an immature spiritual person becoming delusional and thinking that they're probably possibly greater than they are. And then the second shit hits the fan, they're going to find themselves screwed up in a bad place because the ego is going to be very wounded by those experiences. And if you're thinking you're a lot further on the path than you are, and you're not really ready to deal with stuff, you're going to have a problem there. So just keep that in mind, that I did notice some red flags that were in this document. And mind you, they're from the 80s. I don't know who the person was. I haven't done research on him, and I don't know what his spiritual life was like, or, outside of this document. So that being said, I don't know much about him or where he was at spiritually or magically or whatever, you know. But he did get to the point that he was using this to conduct tests on the astral plane. His tests were coming back 80% accuracy. They did multiple things. You could read about them and research them yourself. I'm not going to get into that part of this. What's cool about this document is that they do give like a good overview of space-time. They do give a good view of how to travel space-time using the Hemi-Sync, right? And I do appreciate the Monroe Institute from what little I've seen. I've, you know, brought it up in conversation with friends that give me their ear, and hence I'm doing this video also. I do think that there's something beneficial here to at least try out. When I tried my first meditation through their free YouTube, it was so profound and I felt so relaxing, and I had such a feeling of bliss for the next few hours that I know that there was something good here. But I've also been practicing the occult for 10 years. I've done astral traveling without any type of aid, just forcing my mind into submission and doing it. So for me, it probably came easier than it would come for somebody that's never sat down and practiced the occult before, you know, so you have to know where you're at. But I really do recommend, there's a 30-minute video in the description below out of the practices. It's the first one. I really recommend trying that one first. It was easy, you know, and it gave me that really blissful, calming effect where I felt really good. And, you know, I've had some revelations come up since then. I'm doing other work in my life, so I can't attribute it wholly to doing this, but this has helped me from what I've experienced. I like what the Monroe Institute has done from what I've seen and what I've read about them. However, keep in mind, they're not free. Otherwise, they put some free content out there, but a lot of their courses range from a couple $100 to a couple $1,000, and so you're making a big financial commitment if you decide to actually pursue this. They do have little small communities throughout the United States. I'm not sure if they're abroad. But yeah, they're limited in a financial note. You know, they want money to stay open and keep conducting their own research, so it's expensive. You could practice the occult on your own for free. Just get some literature. There's PDFs available online. It might not be as easy as sitting down and doing this to astral travel, but they do have a couple of free things up on the internet that are a sort of service to people. And so I recommend trying those out. If you like them, then yeah, look into the Monroe Institute. I don't see anything harmful here, other than some of it could be very, very, very expensive. But that said, it was a very unique experience. I have also done EMDR in the past to deal with some childhood stuff, and this was much more gentle than my experience with EMDR. EMDR kicked up a whole bunch of traumatic experiences, and the person I was doing it with did not ground me correctly, and it just left me scattered emotionally afterwards. This did not. This had a very calming effect, and it wasn't meant to focus on trauma. It was more meant for a calming effect. I did another one of those videos in the description on working on the chakras, and it was good. I haven't had such powerful stimulation on chakra meditations in some time. It was very easy to see them, to connect with them, to actually feel them vibrating. I tried doing it in Shavasana, in the corpse pose, laying down, and I found my breathing was restricted, and I panicked, and I kind of broke my first meditation. So I tried it again sitting up, and it was much better. So just do what thou wilt in that situation, you know. Figure out what's going to work best for you and try that. And what else can I say on this particular document? I think I could say that there's something interesting here. I had a good experience with it. Some of the reading in this document is a bit complicated. It requires psychology, a little bit of physics, and all the better if you're a magician and you've been studying different religious systems over the years. But I do think that there's something good and powerful here, and I recommend trying it on your own. You don't necessarily have to read this document. I think that it gives a good overview of why they were using, especially in the 80s, having come out of the Cold War, and the Reagan years were were going on. So yeah, there was a lot of turmoil. We're probably at a lot of turmoil again, and I don't know what the governments are currently doing, if they're still using remote viewing and stuff like that. But I could see at that time especially why they would want to focus on some type of occult means, to get some type of insight on potential enemies or current enemies at that time. So I just think that it's interesting that the CIA actually pursued the Monroe Institute as a viable means of achieving astral travel easily. And yeah, I think that it does work. I think if you're open to experiencing something like that, or if you're into doing some type of introspection, especially, I recommend doing the first video. I think it was very calming, it wasn't scary, it was very peaceful. It was easy to fall into it, and there's another section of this that I'll close with, I suppose, that, yeah, it does border on, like, being in a waking state while experiencing REM sleep, where you're dreaming, but you're also awake, and you can kind of control that, and that's sort of what the astral realm is. It's kind of like, this place that your imagination could just run wild, you know? People create beings, they create gods, they create entities, they create shapes that they put intentions into, and then push that intention into a specific motion, so that that intention interacts with the real world and comes to fruition. So I think that this could be a way that you could use magic in the astral realm, and I think it was very easy to achieve such states of consciousness that it allows you to put your creativity into the astral light and start to create. And they, like I said, they do other things besides. The OB is almost a byproduct and an afterthought in some of the cases. It's more about evolution of self, at least on a conscious level, and helping yourself to be a better person, right? So, yeah, I recommend checking out if you're open to that. And I just thought it was all around cool that the CIA studied this, and I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. So, I'm going to try to get this done by Sunday at the latest, so I could get this out, so I could say, yeah, happy writing of the Book of the Law, everybody, if you acknowledge such, and love is the law, love and do well. Later.